Good evening, everyone. Please stand for the pledge and remain standing. Thank you. Let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. A roll call.
Mayor Dickey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Spellich,
Present.
Councilmember McMahon. Here. Councilmember Charnow.
Here.
Councilmember Magazine.
Here.
Councilmember Friedel.
Here.
Councilmember Grzybowski.
Here.
Thank you all. Our first item is reports by mayor, council members, and town manager. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. I have some good news to report. For the last several weeks, our fire chief has been working with the county, obviously on the pandemic. But we've been trying to see what we can do on having a vaccination plan for our residents here, and he's been able to get tentative approval. Sorry about that. Our fire chief has been able to successfully get tentative approval for a date or two coming up. We will finalize those dates in the next few days. We'll get that information out to the public, but we'll be holding it in the public area on the interior of the community center. We hope to do 200 vaccinations. We believe it's going to happen at the end of this month or the very beginning of May. And we've also been told it will be the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, so that will be the one and done one. So anyways, we'll have more information, but I just wanted to share that, which is a developing situation. Also wanted to remind the public that on Monday, we'll be holding our budget open house at 5:30 in this room in the council chamber. It'll be about an hour long, and it'll be an opportunity for the public to look at the draft budget, proposed budget for next year, and ask any questions and any comments and suggestions. And then the following day, we go into the council budget workshop. So those are all the news I wanted to share with you at this time.
Thank you, Grady. Anybody else have anything to report from this past couple weeks? No? Mike?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First thing, Fountain Hills Coalition, we had our 9th annual essay contest at the high school last week, kind of the award ceremony, and we honored 17 high schoolers who won in some fashion or another, and we just were really surprised by the results and the wonderful essays that we did receive, and given the nature of all of 2020, we had some really heartfelt essays and some really tugging on the heartstrings, and so it was just good to see some positive news come up, all that stuff, and we were able to have a live function with parents and students there, so it was tremendous. And I announced the other week that we were able to obtain some Narcan to distribute to the public, and I gave it to Chief Ott, and we've been handing it out at the 2 fire stations. And as you know, Narcan is used to counteract an opioid overdose. And I don't know, we've given out at least 7. I don't know if we've given out a few more, but I did order some more from the state to give to the chief. And don't leave tonight without me seeing you, because I have the extra supplies with me, so I'll give that to you. So that was another good news. I also was at a high school dedication the other week for the Falcon Nest, and it was a storage room converted to basically a team room for all the sports teams to use at the high school. And well, Dwight Johnson is here, but his father and the Vern C. Johnson Foundation was a big contributor to that project, along with the Falcon boosters, and so it was a real, again, positive celebration, and I was happy Dwight invited me to that. And then the last thing was I held a rummage sale, and a couple of weeks ago, had a tremendous turnout, dozens of people over a 2-day period, Friday and Saturday, and I didn't put up one sign. So just wanted to pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for all you're doing with that. Councilwoman?
Past couple of weeks, I did the Greater Phoenix Economic Council quarterly board meeting. I also had the privilege of being the council representation for the Desert Bell gift shop ribbon cutting and the State of Black business, also with GPEC. 2 times I toured the new Fountain Hills Medical Center, once with some friends and once with my husband. And of course, the Arizona League of Cities and Towns legislative update calls. And the most exciting news was I got my second COVID shot. To make it even more fun, my husband was the volunteer that gave it to me.
You have a good definition of fun, huh? Anything else? Mike, I went to the Valley Metro meeting, and I forgot to tell you about it, but there was a lot of discussion about the American Rescue Plan distribution and ever-present Prop 400 stuff, but we can connect on that. I went to I went to an Urban Land Institute. Everything's virtual, of course, but it was really neat because they were interviewing President Burnett from Fort McDowell. So that was very interesting. We had MAG Regional Council. There was something called the Arizona Mega Region Council. It's a council of local elected leaders from Arizona and Sonora. Work with all levels of government and with the business community to increase dialogue and strengthen cross-border economic development, and that was set up by MAG also. Went to the event to honor Vietnam vets. Had YWCA event, a United Way event. You can go to a lot of events when they're online. We said farewell to Mike Fensel and the community center manager. We wish him well, and I think he got the point. He'll be missed, and it's very nice with that. So, anything else from anybody? Thank you. Our first item is a proclamation. So this is a proclamation declaring April 6th as Golden Rule Day. So this is a request I got early on, probably a couple of years ago. I just hadn't been able to put it all together. So I had asked the Mayor's Youth Council and thought, well, let's see what they think about this, because they were taking on some projects. And the program coordinator is Cade Nelson and Linda, so they said sure they would. They reached out to Larry Fultz with the Arizona Interfaith Alliance, and he sent an invitation to the town to become a Golden Rule community. I believe maybe when they come up and talk, they'll say, but I think the state is a Golden Rule state, and there's some other cities that are also. So I'm going to read the proclamation from up here, and then I'm going to ask you all to come up, whoever wanted to speak, Cade, any of the students, and then when you're done, I'll come down and I will present it to you. So let me read it from here. It says, whereas the citizens of Arizona recognize and appreciate the wonderful diversity of peoples, cultures, faiths, and languages that make up our state, and whereas the Golden Rule proclaims that we should treat others the way we would like to be treated, and whereas variations of the Golden Rule are embraced by every belief system, and whereas through application of the Golden Rule, we may be able to reduce and even eliminate prejudice, hate, bigotry, and racial intolerance, and whereas the schools, community organizations, leaders, parents, and children of the state would benefit by recognizing, teaching, and practicing the Golden Rule as a tool for kindness and civility. And whereas living and practicing the Golden Rule will have a powerfully positive effect on each individual and the society in which we all live, therefore I, Jenny Dickey, Mayor of the town of Fountain Hills, proclaim April 6, 2021 as Golden Rule Day and encourage the citizens of Fountain Hills to live the Golden Rule and to treat others the way they would like to be treated. If you all would like to come up, Cade, or if any one of you that wants to speak, please come on up. You're welcome. Thank you. They tell us a little bit more about it.
So we were hoping that Larry from the Interfaith Movement was going to be able to join us today. It looks like he got caught up. And so for those that aren't familiar with the Mayor's Youth Council, these are some of the youth here in town that represent our council. We have a total of 9 youth on the council this year. And they are very ambitious young people who are interested in being involved in our community and in bettering the town in which they live. This is really a credit to them and their ambitions. This is one of the projects they chose to do this year. They are actually doing two. And so we're doing this along with a mental health campaign. And so one of the things that I did want to say about this is that there are 4 pillars of Golden Rule behavior. And as part of this proclamation and part of Fountain Hills becoming a Golden Rule community, it is that we operate on these 4 pillars: respect, kindness, civility, and empathy. I know that that is something that you, Madam Mayor, as well as the entire council strive for in all of your dealings with the citizens. And I know that we hope that our residents would treat each other with those same important values. I just want to do one last check, make sure Larry wasn't here. We are joining 8 other cities in Arizona as Golden Rule community: Flagstaff, Gilbert, Mesa, Queen Creek, Scottsdale, Surprise, Apache Junction, and Tempe. And so this is a great honor for the town to be considered a Golden Rule community. And Madam Mayor, we appreciate you in doing the proclamation and commissioning the council to see this through. So thank you.
Thank you. Any of you kids want to, you youths want to say anything? No? Okay, well, oh, there you go. Woo-hoo.
We're glad to adopt this proclamation, especially here, just to really reinforce basic human dignity.
Oh,
Yeah, once you get down. The youth of this town are outstanding. And the Youth Council, since it was founded a few years ago, has been of tremendous importance to this town. And I simply want to thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Here it is. I'm going to give it to you, and then you're going to get a picture. It's nice to have young people back in here. Here you go. Why don't you hold on to that and smile under your mask. Yes, yes. Thank you so much, you guys. Very nice. Really appreciate it. And you have to tell us about your other project, too. So, our next item is scheduled public appearances and presentations. This is the Fountain Hills and Republic Services Community Grant Program. I think Grady's going to start us off, and then James will tell us more about it.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, and for the public who are here, and many of the grantees, representatives are here tonight. We're very pleased to host you for this special occasion. Since the beginning of our agreement or contract with Republic Services has been very generous in granting $10,000 a year for nonprofit organizations that are based in Fountain Hills. And we changed the process a few years ago, or I should say, we changed the process this past year, and we did not give grants for 2 years. That's why we have basically $20,000 that Republic has granted for this program for this time. Very fortunate. I asked James Smith, our Economic Development Director, who had some really good experience administering grants, to help me with this, as he's going to explain the process that he detailed so that this would be as impartial as possible, and that we were very fortunate to have just so many outstanding grant applications. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith, who will explain a little bit more. And actually, before I get too far away, I also want to acknowledge in our audience who will also be coming up with us tonight are David Hamlin, the General Manager with Republic Services, and also Stephen Herring, the Government Relations Director. They'll be participating with the award of the grantee checks. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Thanks, Grady. Yeah, Mayor and Council, we this year had 11 applications. We formed a committee with Republic Services and with some members of the Fountain Hills community, and we were able to award 9 grants tonight for the total of the $20,000 that Grady talked about. The priorities for these grants are really stewardship of the environment, educational purposes and quality of life, improving the quality of life, which could include arts, entertainment, those kinds of things. So I think you'll notice that really is kind of the focus of these awards. And unless you have any other questions, Mayor, can I invite you to come down and greet the recipients, and we'll take some photos? So,
Stephen, are they going
yeah, Stephen and David, can I ask you to come up as well?
to see your wallet?
Big heavy thing of all these checks.
So the first award is to the Boys and Girls Club, and I believe we have Aaron Lavelle and Lauren Stratton.
We'll hold the check. You bet. Thank you.
And the next award is Fearless Kitty Rescue, and I believe our former mayor, Linda Kavanaugh, is here.
Hey, we can't see the amounts.
So this was 1,000. The Boys and Girls Club received 3,000.
Thank you.
And the next one is Fountain Hills Charter School, and Lisa Restuccia is here. 3,000. And next is the Fountain Hills Coalition and Shelley Mowry.
No, that's okay.
And next is the Fountain Hills Community Garden. And Mark Dalton and Rita Applegate?
Joy Hubbard.
Oh, Joy Hubbard, I apologize.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Community Theater. And next is the Fountain Hills Community Theater, and Dory Wittrig is receiving that.
Congratulations.
And next is the Fountain Hills Dark Sky Association. That's $500, and Scott Adams is receiving that.
Just come here to get insulted,
Hey, Scott, we only need $17,500 more. Million.
Next is Fountain Hills Noon Kiwanis, which is building a community garden at Fountain Hills Middle School. And Keith Larson is receiving that. Is he here?
Okay, you get it.
Not here.
Let's get Mike down. out. All right, you gotta bring it back up.
Yeah, now you gotta.
Okay, and last but not least, the River of Time Museum, $3,000. Sherry Koss and Sharon Broadhun.
Thank you, thank you. You said what? Oh, okay, well, I'm trying to get them to. Can we do one shot? He'd like to do one with everybody. if that's okay.
Posters or no posters? Posters or no posters?
Make little faces with your eyes.
Mayor and council, I just wanted to add one more thing as they're making their way out. We do expect that there'll be another process in the fall. Another $10,000 will be awarded.
That's great. We really appreciate that. We have great community partners here, and we thank you for that, and appreciate the recognition for all these organizations. We have a call to the public next. Do we have any? We don't have any speaker cards. Next item is consent agenda. Does anybody want anything taken off, or can I get a motion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I consulted with the town attorney this afternoon, and though there wouldn't be what he perceives to be any type of a conflict of interest, but out of an abundance of caution, I am an active member of the Elks, so I will not be voting on agenda item G, as in George. That's the liquor license for the Elks.
Okay.
So I won't be voting on that.
Okay.
Everything else is fine.
Madam Mayor.
So do we take it out, or do we?
No, if it's okay with Liz, what I might suggest is just voting on the consent agenda as listed, and then Liz can just note in the minutes that Councilman Spellich abstained from
Okay.
7G.
Alan?
No, that's it.
Okay. So we have a motion for the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Thanks, David. Move on to the regular agenda. Our first item is consideration of approving Desert Vista crosswalk design concept. Justin?
The good news is we were ready to go until I touched this computer, Madam Mayor.
Well, we have these great big displays here for us, so we're in good shape.
As a background, when staff came before the mayor and council in December and council agreed to the reauthorization of capital projects, this was in the list, at that time, we stated that we would be back to the mayor and council when we got to a certain percentage of each of the projects, and that was also noted as part of the approval of the Kimley Horn contract. So tonight, what we are here to do is present the 30% roll plot for the project. I will be standing on the side, and Kim Carroll of Kimley Horn will be doing the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask, and we will do our best to answer those questions. Kim?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to come today. So, just to kind of give you a little, let's see, make sure this works. Okay, so as Justin, again, my name is Kim Carroll with Kimley Horn. I'm a registered professional civil engineer, and we're helping Justin with this particular project. And so the presentation generally consists of just the project background, just some of the information and the history and how it came to be, an overview of the 30% design concept that we've developed, give you all the opportunity to ask some of those questions about the preliminary design. We also prepared like a plan view rendering, so like an aerial view looking down, so kind of give you more of a look of what it will look like when it's installed, and then a street view. So if you're the vehicle approaching or pedestrian and you're on the street view, what those devices, what that would look like when it's installed, since it's really not there and it's hard to visualize what will be installed. And then let you know what our next steps are, get your questions and see what our next steps are, and hopefully be able to proceed forward with the next step. Okay. So just the background, as you know, the location is Saguaro Boulevard and Tower Drive. It was programmed in fiscal year 2021. The project need came because there's basically no pedestrian crossings within a 3-mile stretch between on Saguaro Boulevard between Shea and El Lago Boulevard. Very few homes can access the park at Desert Vista, and so they either have to drive or find another safe way to get across Saguaro in order to gain access to the park. There's homes that are in that through the neighborhood, and so providing a safe crossing, pedestrians and bikes, that's what the intent of this project is, to provide that safe crossing. We did understand that the project was on a fast track, so right now our schedule is set with an anticipated construction date of starting in mid-June to late June. And of course, that's going to be subject to your approval and how we proceed next. Just a little bit of history. Town Council did identify this in February 2nd, that it was identified as a high priority project. And again, we're here again today to present those preliminary design concept to you. So this roll plot, I think you have a hard copy. Sorry about that. I'll get a little closer to this so you can hear me. You should have a hard copy. It's a little hard to see with so if you want a better copy, we can certainly get you a better copy. This is kind of a rather large limit from Quinto to Bond, and so it's a little hard to see. And the next slides are the renderings to help a little bit more with what that looks like. But what this roll plot is basically showing is our preliminary design. We show sidewalk from Quinto over to Bond, new sidewalk ramps at these locations. This is the location of the crossing to Tower. And what happens is this median is improved to allow pedestrians to cross. There will be some sidewalk in the service frontage road median. And the reason for that is there's quite a bit of grade difference between the frontage road and Saguaro Boulevard. And in order to safely transition and meet ADA requirements, there was a need to be able to transition them with some sidewalk before they cross the street at good slopes and ADA compliant slopes.
Excuse me, I'm
Sure.
sorry. Do we have a pointer?
Yeah, can you, am I not, it's
Maybe
not showing very well. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Oh, okay,
There
now I
is.
see it. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll try to make sure my hands kind of get all over the place sometimes, so I apologize that. So this is some sidewalk, and again, the reason for that sidewalk on this side in the service frontage is to accommodate those grades. So pedestrians would cross, they would turn, and have slopes that are ADA compliant, and then cross here across the service road, and then be able to have sidewalk to Desert Vista Park. This is the striping approaching the pedestrian crossing. These are called high visibility crosswalks to just alert, vehiculars coming. This is a yield line, and then letting them know that there's pedestrians crossing. This also is equipped with what we call a rapid reflective flashing beacon. So what happens is when the pedestrian pushes the button, that tells the motorist and there's a blinking light that lets the motorist know that there's a pedestrian crossing. Now, the pedestrians still need to look both ways, make sure that it's safe when they cross, but this will provide that warning. Let's see, there it is. That warning to help them, help vehiculars approaching to slow and come to a stop as pedestrians cross. This is actually a little bit better picture of that from the plan view. You can see the street and improvements and what the striping is going to look like. That other one is our design drawing, so that's why it's a little bit harder to look at because of the design nature of that drawing. And I kind of went over, I'll get into a little bit more detail on the design. So the sidewalk is 6 foot wide. Typically your sidewalk is 8 foot wide, but in this case, the right-of-way is very tight in this particular area. And so in order to provide a sidewalk width and not encroach into private right-of-way or acquire right-of-way, that's the reason we went with 6 foot sidewalk. You'll notice that there's these little sidewalk meanders at various locations. And the reason for that meandering is there's EPCOR water meters in this location. And in order to avoid the cost to relocate those features, we meandered the sidewalk around those features. There is some locations, there are a few locations here next to the water meters, here and here, where we're putting in some retaining walls. And the reason for that is the slopes in there behind the sidewalk vary. And so in order to keep the dirt and as well as tie back into slopes again prior to needing any right-of-way, these spot locations had retaining walls associated with them. They're very small. They vary from 0 to 2 feet, so they're not tall or anything like that in there. Let's see. In the median, what we do in the median is there's a ramp on either side of the crosswalk. In the median, we're removing and allowing for a concrete and detectable warning pads. So it's not necessarily a ramp, it's an opening in the median, so it removes that curb, it puts concrete in, it puts the detectable warning pads in, allows pedestrians to cross into the median, and there will be additional pedestrian buttons and devices here. So if somebody gets out into the median and needs to re-push the button to help them get across, it's called a 2-stage crossing. So this allows them to make that 2-stage crossing and have a button in the median in order to push that. When they get across, again, we talked about this. This is the sidewalk that will ramp to a new ramp here and a new ramp here, and then on your way to the, sure.
Thank you. I have a question. I spoke with Justin about it. My concern is the sidewalk on the very top, in the medium, the first medium, and the safety of that with people because it's between 2 streets. And I wonder if there's going to be any type of fence or wall or anything or higher curb or whatever so that people won't wander off of it, that they'll be safer and more enclosed and not have a tendency to just like walk across the street.
So right now, currently, the design does not have that, but that's something that could be added. We could look at that if that's needed, but currently, right now, the design is just an opening for them to be able to cross through. And they would be confined, because there would be vertical curve there, and they would be confined to that spot, but not fencing at this point.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may add a little bit to that, this crossing, while it's a mid-block, it will be very similar to what we have at Saguaro and Avenue of the Fountains. They'll cross halfway, there's a safe haven, and then they'll cross to the second half. Very similar to that.
A question. So I see where you have the crosswalk positioned. could you not just move that whole crosswalk up north and eliminate that sidewalk?
So we did.
And line it up directly with that,
This one here. We actually did look at that when we were going through the initial design, and because the grades were so steep, this was the only side we could put it on and allow it to flatten out and make the slopes more basically ADA compliant. The compliancy is that the running slope cannot be more than 5%, and because on this particular side, it gets higher in elevation. And so that was the reason that we chose this particular location in order to be able to safely cross them. There's about a 2-foot difference between this curb line and that curb line. There was no way to transition, so you can kind of think of it as a slope like this. They're starting here and they have to go like this, which is too steep of a slope for somebody to cross at that location. So unfortunately, in order to meet ADA and make that a safer transition, that was the reason for this piece.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I had the same question today too, Jerry, with Justin, but my other recommendation is the landing zone there. When you get to the service drive, you know, I can see skateboarders kind of zooming across Saguaro and then just kind of keep going. And I know there's going to be probably a little bit of curbing there or something, but maybe you look at maybe making that a little bit higher just to kind of prevent skateboarders from just scooting straight instead of turning left like they should when they get in the sidewalk area there.
Yeah,
you know what
so
I mean?
when you're talking, just to make sure I understand, Councilman, when you're talking about would they come through here?
No, in the service drive median.
Right in here.
Right there, when
Okay.
they're coming across Saguaro and they're hitting that first landing zone. I think some kids are going to be tempted to just keep going straight
Yeah, I see
instead of
what you're
turning
saying.
left, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So whatever, you know, if there's a little foot railing or just something to kind of,
And actually, because of the slopes, the design, we don't have an elevation view with this right now, but because of the slopes, there's a slight retaining wall there in order to slope them down. So when they come through, in the low end, it raises up. So it'll be harder for them to say necessarily just go straight through. Because we have to make this wall here has to be at top of curb. So when they come in, and that's the low end, they come in and then they go up and then they cross. So there's a little bit of an up there. I don't remember the exact height right now of that, but there would be a little bit of that raised curb so that they couldn't just go through. And again, at this point, there's like a 2-foot difference. So when they enter, there's a 2-foot difference between here and here. So you can kind of imagine almost like a 2-foot wall in front of them when they first enter.
yeah, no, that's perfect. I was just thinking the other way, coming
This-
across Saguaro toward
Right.
that, you know, something there to kind of inhibit them going straight.
And
You know what I
maybe
mean?
some handrail. I mean, that's something we could,
I mean, I don't want to delay the project or add,
yeah.
you know, thousands of dollars,
But
but
let
it
me
might
just
be.
make a note of that so I don't forget about that. So,
Well, my concern too is, now that you said skateboarders, they want to jump and flip over things, so it would have to be something that they really couldn't do that with, you know, as a challenge to jump over. It's complicated. I know that there's, at the Scottsdale Promenade, Kierland Commons there's a similar one that goes across over to the other side, and they have they have some higher barriers there, so people can't just run out in the street. Because that's such a busy, Scottsdale's such a busy street.
If I may, Madam Mayor, to answer Councilmember Charbonneau's question, the area he's referencing is if you're going from the south side of Saguaro to the north side, when you enter the service road ramp, that curb opening ramp will already have a raised curb on the back of it to prevent people with physical challenges or mobility challenges from going off of the side of that and 2 feet down onto the road. So there will already be a raised curb on the back side of that ramp prior to them turning left and entering the sidewalk, which is a ramp down to the next elevation.
right. Yeah, there'll be vertical curb on either side of these the whole entire way. And it'll get taller, say like at this location, because of that grade difference that I was talking about. So, A couple of other things. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. So the the flashing beacons, reflective flashing beacons, they're positioned here and here, here, and here, and that's where the buttons are. It also includes a street light to make sure that if somebody's crossing at night for safety reasons, that at night when somebody's crossing, the crosswalk is lit. We did not want to proceed without a light at the crosswalk, especially for in the evenings if somebody's crossing. We want to make sure that the crosswalk is lit. So there are lights at each of these corners that go over the crosswalks as well.
Justin, is that part of the plan and the financing of the project to have streetlights?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it is.
And is there any concern about neighbors or anything like that, by putting in? Would they be pretty low, just straight down and that
They
kind of
will
thing?
not be too low. They'll, I don't have the elevation right now, but they'll be approximately 18 feet high. And if we face challenges with adjacent homes on the south side, what we'll do is shielding, very similar to other locations where we have
I was just going to
street
say
lighting.
that we do shielding. If you notice, we really don't have streetlights in town for the most part, but where we do have them for sure is you'll see them at signalized intersections, and you'll have that so that the people can see clearly the crosswalk that they're walking across and the grade that they're walking. So this is a very good feature, and I think it's really essential. And I also think that the flashing beacon will also help slow down the folks that are driving on either side of Saguaro. So I think this is a very big consideration because, as you know, when you drive on Saguaro, you've got it's a curve and linear street. So people are coming upon this and they could be surprised. Also, I think the flashing, the sidewalk lighting or whatever is very essential too, particularly at night. So people from a distance will probably likely see that before they see, hawk lights or the beacon lights, which will only be flashing as necessary, right? When people push in the button to cross.
Correct.
Councilman?
You mentioned traffic signal, and they cost a lot of money. Can you show me where you would put it, and did you look at any options?
So this is kind of what the street view would look like of that particular crossing. It's not your standard signalized intersection, so you don't have the mast arms. It does look more like advanced signing. It's a little hard to see, but these are the beacons. So what happens is pedestrian will push the button, these beacons will come on. These are the street lights, so like Justin said, it's not like the large traffic signal poles that are about 30 feet high. In this case, this one's like 18 to 20 feet high. And the reason there's two of them is because they are lower, you do need to get that coverage over the pedestrian crossing. So that was the need for having two lights that go over the crosswalk in this case. Signing, and then in this case, what we didn't talk about, these are also solar. So there's not a need to work with SRP or your electrical service provider to provide power to this. These are being designed so that they'll be solar powered with battery. So during the day, they'll be charging. The lights will come on at night. That's what they're designed. Oh, sorry about that. The lights will be designed to come on at night, but these beacons will only come on when the pedestrian pushes the button. Okay.
One more, if I may. When we looked at lights on the avenue, holiday lights and so on, I may be wrong, Justin, but I thought we looked at solar lights, and we found that in this heat, they just don't last very long. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, excuse me, council member, in this particular case, this is a new system that's really only going to be storing energy in batteries in a controller. It's a different application than, say, holiday lighting. And I also think it's very important to note here, Kim and I often use a lot of initials to describe a rapid rectangular flashing beacon. So what we are talking about is in between the pedestrian crossing sign and the supplemental placard with an arrow, there is a rectangular light bar that is approximately this big. It's about 28 inches across and about 4 inches high. That is actually the flashing lights. So it's not the larger ones that you would see associated with a school crossing or a hawk signal. These are considerably smaller, but effective, and also for this application is the only one currently approved by the Federal Highway Administration for use. You're welcome.
Would you, I think I pretty much covered, unless there was some any other questions regarding the plan view or aerial view, and then I could go back to the street rendering. Okay. We just thought that the street rendering might help with an idea of what that's going to look like when it's built. And so kind of zooming in again, that's the new sidewalk that meanders around. It's a little hard to see, but that would be the retaining wall at those locations that's up higher. Pedestrians cross, these are detectable warning pads. And then it's, you can kind of see the sidewalk here, and then they would cross at that location. Okay? And then next steps, so right now we're, with your approval and comments, we'll take those comments back. Right now, construction is estimated to start in June. We won't proceed with design until council and Justin has given us approval to go to that next step. So really, it's we'll receive your comments, and once we hear next, we'll move to that next step.
Justin, was this on the approved CIP list?
Madam Mayor, Council Member, this was approved as part of the 2021, as part of this year's budget. And then it was not in the first 6 months because it wasn't in the 5 projects the council originally authorized as a higher priority because we were uncertain about financing. This one was reauthorized in December to move forward. The short answer is yes. This is in the CIP budget for this year, and a percentage of it is scheduled for next year.
I must have been napping. What was it called in the CIP list?
The Desert Vista Crosswalk.
I was napping.
It had the number, and if you look at it, I think it was 100,000 for this year and 180,000 for next year. At least that was the original. So it was in the plan.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody? No? Thank you. So is anybody prepared to make the motion?
Move to proceed with the final design of the Desert Vista Crosswalk.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. It passes. Thank you very much. Well,
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate this.
Thank you, Kim.
And again, I forgot to ask if there were any speaker cards. I'm guessing you'll tell me if there are. Our next item is a public hearing on a zoning ordinance regarding golf ball fences. I will call the hearing to order, and we'll hear reports and discussion.
Mayor and Council, another text amendment for you to consider this evening. As you know, the town has several golf courses, and those golf courses are often lined with single-family residences. People enjoy living near a golf course, but at times the golfers who can't quite keep the ball on the course as they hit them off the tee will find those balls coming into their backyards, hitting their house, and possibly damaging their property. So the zoning code in section 509, where we talk about walls and fences, includes a provision that allows people to establish golf ball nets or fences in their rear yards or along their side yards between them and the golf course to protect them from those golf balls. The ordinance as it's currently set out has several specific provisions about where these nets can be allowed, but also requires them to be approved through consideration of a special use permit by the town council. We've had these provisions in place now for several years. I've had a few of these applications come through to the council that have fairly routinely been approved. So the last time one came through, the council suggested that we amend the ordinance to no longer require people to have to go through that process of coming to council. And so that's what this text amendment is about, is to make that amendment so that if someone meets the provisions that are in the code, we can review it and approve it administratively. But if someone doesn't quite meet those provisions and still would like to get a net, we've left the option in there to apply still then for the special use permit so it could come to council in those more unique settings for council to consider those.
So that is the text amendment that's before you. It's fairly simple and straightforward.
Thank you. Councilman?
Go ahead. I just found myself wondering where you came up with 25 feet. To say I'm an occasional golfer is an overstatement. But I would think an 8 or 9 iron is going to go over 25 feet without any effort.
Mayor, Councilmember Magazine, that's the number that's in the code currently. So where they came up with that 25 feet, that's probably the maximum height allowed in a residential is 30 to begin with, so it's something close to what the maximum height of a structure could be. But beyond that, I really don't know why 25 was picked. I didn't look at making any changes to the existing provision, just to eliminate the special use permit requirement.
So 30 feet could be allowed under the code.
It could be if we wanted to make that adjustment.
Personally, I would. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. I just think you need to protect these folks. It's pretty easy to go over 25 feet.
I got 100 that says you can't hit a 9 iron 25 feet. But anyways, just as I got contacted by a resident who's, the code says that it must be in the rear or the side of the property.
Right.
And there's residents that live on Trevino, and the driving range at Desert Canyon, the end of the driving range faces the front of their homes. And they've been getting bombarded with people. It says at Desert Canyon that you're only to use an iron on the driving range, but there's people that take out driver all the time. You can clear that. And so how would we address a situation where people's homes, the front of their homes, face the back of the driving range because they're seriously considering, since their houses are getting hit so much, they're seriously considering putting a fence up that would be on that side of the driving range in front of their home.
Interesting situation, Councilmember, or Vice Mayor, would have to take a look at that in terms of how we would address it through the code. Generally speaking, the idea of putting these nets in front of houses along streets doesn't seem very attractive, but there may be unique situations where it may be warranted, or for the golf course itself to put it on their property. And that's a little bit different situation, potentially, than what this is. I'd be glad to look at it. But I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
it
we
wouldn't
need
be
to
in the
change
front of
this.
their property, of
Right.
course, but
Beyond
it
that.
would be at the back of the driving range at Desert Canyon. It would be the back of the driving range, but their homes would face the net.
Right.
So what I'm basically saying is, I don't want to make a vote, or I don't want to approve this if in fact that by approving it, it would limit those residents who are in this position and ace them out of having the ability to protect their homes. So if I have your assurance that if they come to you in the future and want this, that it wouldn't definitely be a no, that we would be receptive to their problems.
Sure. So again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, this provides for a way to get a golf net on the rear of your property by right administratively. It leaves open to come to council for special use permit for situations that don't meet this. So that seems like that's a worst case, is they're coming through the special use permit process than to have that consideration. If I look at the particulars, there may be other ways that we can address it, or other code amendments we might want to consider.
Okay, I just, like I said, it's not fair to them to be so limited in the language, so that if they did want that, it would be an automatic no.
Right.
So if you're open to
Yes.
bringing that in front of us, or you making the decision, then I'm for it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Alan, as far as 25 versus 30, I don't know. Somehow they came up with the 25. I mean, there's some that I've seen that are already up are pretty obtrusive the way they are, so I'm not sure if I would want to see them go to 30. I mean, it's been a while since I've golfed, but you've seen Top Golf and their fences, and I probably could top those with some of my my errant shots, but and that was the other, it leads me to my other question. I imagine when this first was instituted, perhaps the council at the time wanted to see them just because of the neighbors and the public, getting some input from the neighbors if how this would affect them. And So under this new procedure you're proposing, I mean, it's all administrative. Is there any kind of notification process to the neighbors, or is just kind of?
Mayor, Councilmember, no, we're not proposing anything. If it meets the standards that have been set, we could approve it without any notice. Again, if it was outside the parameters and coming for the special use permit, then it would have notice.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just wondering if there'd be consideration for including some kind of provision in there. You have to send out letters to certain feet like we do on a lot of other things, or if that's something that we're not really concerned about. I don't know.
Aaron, in general, when something is done administratively, can people always appeal it or bring it to the council?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the thing that's being done. Usually administrative decisions, it may be appealable. You may be able to appeal something to a Board of Adjustment. So yes, there is a remedy available, Mayor.
Okay, any further discussion? Do we have any cards on this? No? All right. Oh, Aaron?
I'm sorry, did we open the public hearing already?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I was just about to close it. I've been holding it the whole time so I don't forget. So I will close the public hearing, and if there isn't any more discussion, we could take a motion. 122, page 122.
Move to ordinance 21-04.
Thank you.
To adopt. We missed that word on the text here.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That was fun. Our last item is the legislative bulletin. Grady, do you want to go over some of that, please?
Sure. So Mayor and Council, unfortunately for the packet, I was not able to do an update to the table that you liked that we've been doing, but there wasn't a lot of activity on those items. Everything is kind of stalled, but we do have about 4 or 5 different bills I just wanted to share with you that are of some concern to the town. One is Senate Bill 1146. It's sponsored by Senator Shope. This is the one that the council took the position previously on opposing, which has to do with the prohibition of sales tax on vehicles that are purchased primarily for the purpose of taking them out of state. This, as you know, is not a good situation, and the way it works is that once someone does that, when they take it to their state where they live permanently, the motor vehicle department requires them to pay sales tax to that particular state. So this is just a no-brainer. I don't understand why the legislature is not getting that this is really hurting us at the expense of other states. But in any case, that is still hovering around. I guess it had its third read on March 18th with a vote of 31 to 28 and was retransmitted back to the Senate. So the league has been working very diligently on this to try to see if they can get it killed. But as you can see, it's very close. With that, I don't know what else that we could do. We have already registered our opposition to it, but I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. Also, there's House Bill 2049, which it's an odd one. It's really it's geared to punish some cities that the legislature or others didn't like how they were handling condemnation as it relates to EPCOR. I don't really believe that this really would affect us unless we decided at some point we wanted to condemn EPCOR's assets and bring them into the town. But proponents of the bill are working on an amendment, but have not yet shared the language with the league or asked for feedback. It did pass the Senate Rules Committee last week, and it's not yet been scheduled for the Committee of the Whole. Another striker amendment has to do with House Bill 2190. This has been getting quite a bit of attention. This has to do with vaccines, the COVID vaccines, and cities and towns and other governmental entities cannot either give preferential treatment to those that might have received it or withhold benefits from people that may not have received the vaccine. There's a lot of different things that there are impacts that this bill is so broad and affects There's also some talk about this would also prohibit, the state or counties coming up with COVID vaccine passports or some sort of documentation that can be used. So this is just really, I think the intent was really meant for something else to try to protect people, but I think the interpretation is so broadly written that it could really be pretty badly interpreted and applied. This is one that if we were to take a position, I would highly recommend this one because I think it's going to have negative impacts potentially on cities and towns and the state as a whole, and that's House Bill 2190. If there's no other discussion on that, I'll move on to the next one. Yes.
Excuse me, before we move on, give us the précis of that again. Is it strict? You said it's broad. Does it have to do with cards or whatever that prove that you have or have not taken the vaccine? Or
Well, it's so broad, I'll give you an example. So if an employer, a government employer like us, we have wellness programs, and if we had decided to try to incentivize people to be vaccinated, and we wanted to give them, like $50 that they can have towards their flexible spending account or something like that that they can use, to incentivize that, we would be prohibited from doing that. That's just an example. The league has used that as an example. Jenny, did you have any other?
I was just going to say that there's a couple different things. The incentive could be that you can't give them, an extra hour for lunch to go get it. So it's not just a matter of, monetary incentive or something like that. But they did mention that it could actually have to do with healthy living rewards. So I was kind of joking, but if you think about that challenge that a lot of us are doing, that walking challenge, or if you have an office that's, going to try to quit smoking or something, it's written in a way that I think made the league fear that it would start to stop you from doing anything that would incentivize any kind of healthy behavior. I don't know, it also might have like something to do with, what is it, like the donut place, I can't think of it now, but they were giving out donuts, Krispy Kreme, so that's probably where they kind of got the idea too. So they just don't want you to incentivize anything, but they didn't say COVID vaccine, so it's too broad. Councilman?
I'm going to move that we vote to disapprove this particular, or let the legislature and the governor know that we oppose this legislation.
Thank you. Sharon, you had something to say?
I was just going to mention that also includes fire rescue people, that like Dave couldn't insist that all of his fire rescue guys go get the vaccine,
Right.
whatever vaccine it might be at the time.
That's right, I forgot that part.
Yeah, it may not even be the COVID one right now. You're absolutely right. It could be one that has not gone through the emergency approval process. It could just be a regular FDA-approved vaccine. So it doesn't even have to be the current vaccines that are out right now.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 2190 Stryker, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And Grady, you want to touch on the homelessness one?
Yeah, so the other one is House Bill 2668. This is another Stryker amendment. Again, Stryker amendments are where they take other bills that have died and then they revive them with other language, totally making them different, makes it very difficult. They're stealthy, they go under the radar. House Bill 2668 establishes a Class 3 misdemeanor for using state property for camping. And basically the way that the bill is written is it broadly describes state property to potentially include municipal property. So while on the surface it sounds like it's maybe a good tool to help with trying to manage homelessness that might be happening at parks and things like that, it actually provides it actually criminalizes the street camping where it could penalize the cities and towns and others that may take away resources from us. So it says under House Bill 2668, the state could strip away grants used by municipalities to support homeless and law enforcement if cities do not enforce the camping prohibition laws. One of the grants that the state could withhold from cities and towns is the Byrne Memorial Grant, which I understand the Byrne Memorial Grant, I believe, is a U.S. Justice Department grant that flows through the Justice Department to the state that then gets re-granted to law enforcement agencies. It could also include grants from the Governor's Highway Safety Office, which we've been a recipient of that in the past. So I think the intent, this came from a think tank, and I think the intent was to try to address the issue, but I think it goes a little bit too far and takes away a lot of our flexibility. Granted, these are issues, very difficult, challenging issues to work with, and I think that there's a lot of policy out there that can probably help, but I think they just go a little too far on hurting cities and towns on the financial side of this.
Councilman?
That's what we need. We need legislation that takes resources away from us. I'm going to move that council notify legislature and the governor that we oppose this bill.
Thank you. I also want to mention that it's unconstitutional in that when you don't allow camping or whatever they want to call it, you have to have some kind of an alternative. And if, obviously here in Fountain Hills, we don't have anything close enough to offer, or if you're in Phoenix, but the Cass House or something is full. So it really has some issues like that, major constitutional problems, as they said. And also, what struck me too is that the Cicero Institute, who brought this forward, did not speak to anybody that's involved in this. So they didn't talk to any of the people that might have some actual suggestions. So, great, I just want to check with you because I copied and pasted. I have 2688 for it, but I also saw it as 2668. So we'll just have to make sure that we get the right number.
Yes. So I have what the league provided me.
Yeah, the one today from our phone call,
Yes.
I think they had it wrong. They had 2688. So.
Yeah, so I have 2668 in my writing here.
So we have a motion to oppose that. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thanks. And the other thing, Grady, is just about the short-term rental bill. So the one that, the 1379 is the short-term rental bill that we did not like because it was the industry bill, the Airbnb. There was a very big, anybody on the call saw a sense of frustration that the league had been trying for weeks and, been told one thing and other things happened. So we're glad that this bill died. For some of the people that voted no are because they don't want you to mess with short-term rentals. Other people who voted no did it for the right reason, that this bill did not do what was required. So Representative Kavanaugh was the sponsor of the good one, and 2481, but that one did not keep going. So his no vote on 1379 was legit, and we're grateful for that. And there was a lot of frustration on the phone, the mayor of Jerome and others, of trying to think of something else that we might be able to do because our neighborhoods, he said something like, it's not just the party houses, there's so many of them being bought that neighborhoods are just not even where people are living anymore. They're just turning into commercial areas. And so it's something that we really support them to go after that. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I just want to say that I've talked to people in Sedona who are leaving in droves because of this. And in the press, I read about one individual who was building 3 homes specifically for this purpose. Mm-hmm. And it's just ruining the town.
It's crazy.
I'd like to mention that at Eagle Mountain, there was a vote to prevent short-term rentals, and it passed by over a 75% majority because that was what was required. So they're amending their CC&Rs, and they have very, very strict requirements, even for pre-existing homes. They've grandfathered in some rentals that are pre-existing, but that's only for a very short term.
Mayor? Aaron, is that legal?
Mayor and council, I think within the scope of whatever statutory authority it has, an HOA can amend its CC&Rs to reflect that. In fact, I think there was a recent Superior Court opinion on that, like 3 or 4 years ago. I think one of my old colleagues actually litigated that, and so I believe it is.
Our research of this about 3 years ago was really the homeowner associations have considerably more power because they've had case law that supports this, that basically when you have these provisions in these CC&Rs that everyone's agreed to that lives in that association neighborhood, that everybody's on notice, they've all signed, they've all agreed, even though it may not be everybody agrees to it, the fact is the majority has voted that in, they have more authority, believe it or not, an HOA on this particular subject than what a city or town has. Now, before they deregulated short-term rentals at the state level, we used to be able to use zoning and other factors to help control and regulate this. They took all that away from us. But HOAs, we can get all of our HOAs in town, and unfortunately, the largest ones do have provisions that limit rentals to, no rentals less than 6 months are usually allowed. That's usually what they define as a short-term rental is less than 6 months. So that's really the key, and we've talked to what's the large association?
Eagle Mountain?
NPOA?
Yes, thank you. We've met with the MPOA board before. We've encouraged them to try, because they're the largest single HOA in town, and we've tried to encourage them on a couple occasions to try to consider this, because we believe with all the bigger ones, if we can get MPOA, then maybe this is the way to address this. And then maybe even have them consider expanding their service area into the other areas that don't have HOAs.
I'm guessing, I may be wrong, but I'm guessing that a lot of the HOAs have no idea they can do this. And I find myself wondering if there's a way to let them know that they can do this.
Well, when we did this education process, we reached out initially to the low-hanging fruit. So we targeted the larger ones that were out there that had, like at least 50 homes or more. And that's how we kind of initially dealt with it. And we found that fortunately, like Sunridge, they have it. I thought Eagle Mountain had some level, but it sounds like they got even tougher. We met with Fire Rock, the mayor and I did, and they were having issues as well. And they put in and they tightened that up as well.
Yeah,
So.
the language, the model language.
Mm-hmm. Mayor, the only other thing I just want to remind the council is that they're still talking with the governor's budget proposal, going to some sort of a flat tax, which would basically impact cities and towns. We collect about 15% of the state collections on income tax, of which our share is about $1 million that under this current proposal would be impacting Fountain Hills by about $1 million a year if this were passed by the legislature. So we're going to really need to really work and step it up. This is probably one of the most important things affecting us right now in terms of dollar impacts to Fountain Hills. I just don't know where we can make up $1 million a year that would really support police and fire. It's a huge deal to us.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, Grady, Aaron, do we know the status of what we sometimes call the gun bill?
I haven't looked at that for a while. You're talking about the most recent one this session?
Yes.
It's
The
been
one
a
we came
while.
up, the one we opposed.
I have it somewhere here.
Yeah, the one that we took a vote on. I apologize, Alan, I don't have that prepared today.
It's 2551. And it passed 5-2 in the Senate committee, so it was a House bill. It hasn't been on rules yet, but this is a little bit of an older report here. So, but it already went through the House, went through a Senate committee at least, and maybe more, I don't know. You're welcome. Anything else?
No, the only good thing I could tell you is that the legislature is more than halfway through. So that means, that they can do, very little harm. I mean, the striker bills are probably the worst thing that we're going to see other than this budget package right now. So we're almost through the finish line.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any possible discussion with possible consideration for direction to the town manager? No? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night.